And it looks like we're off.
Yeah, so we are starting with Dark Knight Cecil, which was one of the flags. Actually starting with the vanilla party here with a Kmain. Very nice.
That is actually a very vanilla start with a package as well.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, that's crazy. And the package, again, is really nice. Not, again, because we're looking for Fu, and we kind of want that early Black Mage as well. We are starting with a very varied starter kit as well. As you can see, really nice combination of stuff in there. Between the nice character start here and the kit, the runners are, even with T Wildish on, I'm sure the runners here are going to try and fly through the key item checks because there are potentially a lot of them.
And it does look like we've got a little bit of variance right from the start, with Antidale immediately going to check that character.
Yeah, finding a Yang, which is not really what you're looking for at this point. You know he's there, so if it turns out you want to try and slingshot him for some reason, you can go grab him later, but he doesn't really give you any utility early, so certainly not worth going through the cutscene at this point.
And we also did see a Sid in the inn. So again, not our key characters, but a Sid early on can have some utility.
Yeah, he's got access to a lot of the mage killing weapons if you can come across them. And he's got a really decent strength and health pool early. He falls off very quick. He's mostly an anchor end game, but as you mentioned, very nice early game character. So Interdale and Tybalt looks like they're focusing on on looting sprees, checking the more condensed areas. Tybalt actually taking a poke into the Mist Dragon spot to see who's here as well.
That's nice to see there and not somewhere required for sure. And Antidale heading straight to the Antlion Cave.
Yeah, high density of checks, as you mentioned, with that T Wildish on. You got the potential to find basically anything really game breaking here. Starting with this Cecil, you would really like one of the high end swords for Cecil to make him worth turning into a paladin. Kane also gets much, much better with a high end weapon for him. Looks like the best thing we saw in the cave there was a set of crystal armor, or 65,000 bucks, as I like to call it, which is nice for picking up items, especially since we have pro shops on. So there should be some good stuff available in the shops in the seat as well.
And as our tracker Iker points out, we have seen Fu in the bed, so a sand ruby would be absolutely fantastic at this.
Yeah, that will probably, for the folks who scout Fu out, will probably push them even more so to just get key item checks done. Now that you know that getting those key items out is what will push you towards finding that sand ruby.
And it looks like Twisted Flax is going to go through the scene, get his Yang, and possibly see what that boss is in the Kaipo. Hopefully looking for a CPU hiding away in a really trolly spot.
Yep, absolutely. That package boss, when you have boss objectives on, is one of the places that will trip up a lot of players.
And we have a Rosa on the Mount Hobbs, guarded by some very angry sisters.
Yeah, the Mega Sisters are going to be pretty tough here. You don't have a lot of damage on this party right now, and most of what you do are those attack items, which the Reflect on Cindy is going to make pretty tough.
And I didn't see, but did Antedale manage to kill the boss in Antlion, or was it a little too tough with the party he's got?
Had Odin there, took it down with Zeus Rage. I didn't notice the item he got from it, but I don't see anything on our tracker, so I'm assuming it was nothing particularly great. Valvella's pointing out that we saw Crystal Zero in the waterway, so that's fantastic. Got a strength ring there as well. So if finding everything you could possibly want to turn Cecil into the best character in the game, quite frankly. So I'm sure he is going to be looking to push toward Mount Ordeals as soon as he feels ready.
Well, and if there's an edge in this seed, he also just found a Murasame as well.
Finding a curse string there as well, which is very nice for anchoring purposes. Don't see too many folks take the deep dive into the waterway like this. Going into the first room with the waterfall and then exiting out is rather common. Going all the way through it here is less common. So anything really good that they pull out of the back here will be really beneficial for them.
Well, and that's a great use of those exits, as once you get that deep, you don't want to have to make the walk.
Absolutely. I love the play into the water we pass if you have a source of exit. So either the items or starting with Tella, but you certainly don't want to walk out, as you said. Looks like Count's also going to take a poke at the Octomammoth spot. Again, this makes complete sense when you have boss objectives on.
Well, and it looks like in all that diving, he also found a ribbon, which will be great if he finds a Golbat.
Absolutely. Ton of utility from the ribbon, lots of magic defense. It's one of the better helmets in the game. It's a nice find.
And on Tybalt's side, it looks like he's having much better luck with the Magus sisters this time. With Cindy down, it's pretty much just a easy fight to kill Sam.
Yeah, very nicely done. Antedale takes a poke into the Troyo mini treasury here. Finds a black sword, which will actually let Dark Knight Cecil doing something that approximates the damage, and of course has the insta-kill proc on it as well. So that will actually make Dark Knight Cecil about as useful as he's capable of being. So that's actually kind of a decent pickup until we get into Mount Ordeals. And as you noted earlier, Alicel, finding Baigen. Baigen is sort of sneakily one of the harder bosses that can show up at a lot of the high-end boss fights. So really nice that he's here.
Yeah, at some place like, say, the summon bosses in Feymarch, he just can wreck a party so quick.
Yeah, anything with speed and attack power with three enemies hitting you. Yeah, and then of course every once in a while you'll get unlucky and actually get through and then die to the exploding arms with if it's a spot with any kind of decent HP. So it definitely can be very annoying later.
And with Antedale now, with the knowledge that there is a mop in the bed, he knows now to prioritize that sand ruby.
Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of equipment Antedale has found. He's got that black sword, obviously. I'm not sure what kind of equipment he's found for Kane and Paladin Cecil at this point. But he, I would think, is going to start knocking out the key item locations pretty quickly. I don't think we've come across anything for really going into the Eblin Castle trap chest just yet. You'd really want at least hourglasses before you head in there.
That's right, because since trap chests are on, it is not likely, but possible to find your key items there.
So we should see Twisted is fighting Odin at Antlion spot. Does decide that he's just going to dip into those Zeus Rages, which, yes, you can see what kind of damage that does. Odin exceptionally weak to lightning. Not really going to find many better uses for those Thor Rages, except maybe a tough Knatso somewhere.
And just a Moon Veil for the Odin fight, which can have its definite utility.
Absolutely, especially when you don't know what's going on and whether or not you have a hook seed or not. A boss that does a lot of physical attacking at the Rubicante or at the Ebelin Royals spot, a Moon Veil can definitely get you through that when it's exceptionally difficult to get through it otherwise. So it's not what you're looking for, obviously, but it's not a bad find. Count Zero also going to be taking on the package here. Again, I kind of get it when you have a boss hunt on. You don't want to go through this, and Yang is not exactly a great early game character, but you'd really rather not go running through the entire seed when you could have just fought CPU here right at the beginning of the game. So I do understand Count and Twisted taking the opportunity to do this.
Absolutely. Something like that can gain you so much time because it's not a check that everybody wants to do. A long, long cutscene for a monk that may or may not pay off.
Right. Especially since we're not even particularly going to be looking at Zeromus in this seed. We're going to be looking to get through the giant, so definitely makes sense.
And as Dathis in chat points out, we do have some interesting new palettes. Well, not new, but newish. There's Merle from Chrono Trigger and Little Mac from Punch-Out. And these palettes are done by our resident Scala Kitty. She works hard on each and every one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great. I always call that Hulk hands Yang. I don't know. I prefer my headcanon. Little Mac's fine.
And Count Zero getting trolled by the worst boss in this game, the old lady in Kaipo.
Some of the NPCs, the red-haired lady in Troya and the purple-haired lady in Agart. She has really gotten me my last few seeds. I've been stuck behind her, which felt like forever.
And Antidale going into Fabul and finds the Dark Imps.
Yeah, so we noted that that Baigan who's in a really nice spot early. Now we're starting to run into a few bosses you would kind of like to have in tougher spots. Dark Imps being one of them. So we'll see if our runners wind up heading into the moon or anything like that and running into tough stuff. But that's a few free-ish bosses that are off the table now.
And it looks like just a heroine robe for his troubles in Fabul. But still a nice find for Rosa if you want to make her a archer.
Absolutely. Rydia's got a little bit of value in this key item setup as well because that warp glitch is on. And Rydia, other than potentially Fu, if you get lucky and it's early in his spell list, Rydia is the one who learns warp at the lowest level, and having a heroine Rydia is not exactly terrible either.
It looks like the monks are hiding some wine in their back treasury.
Just letting it for age. Got to get it to that perfect. You know, I'm sure. I wonder what year is the best Fabul wine.
And for those who haven't played Free Enterprise before or may be new to the community, some of these items may look new if you only had played the original Final Fantasy II. But Bacchus wines cast the Berserk spell on your character.
Right. So again, yeah, for people who are new, we can talk about that. Berserk is exceptionally good in Final Fantasy IV because it allows you to not need to input character menus, and the way it sort of what we call clogs the ATB system. Your characters will move, or seemingly move, very, very fast compared to your enemies when you Berserk a whole bunch of them. Combined with the attack power bonus and the speed, your physical fighters will hit for a lot of damage.
Well, and even on some fights, such as Plague, you can clog the queue and your characters sit at 0 while they just keep attacking and it never counts down because agility manipulation.
Yep, exactly. Just great example of one of the ways that Berserk really, really helps you out. It certainly is one of the more powerful things you can do in Final Fantasy IV. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about the others as we go.
And it looks like, as Valvolus pointed out, Count Zero is redoing his package check. I wonder if he didn't have a save and had some issues.
Yeah, he may have reset thinking that he had a save in place, and turns out that he didn't. It's the only thing I can think of.
And it looks like Twisted Flax has made his way up Mount Ordeals and has found the Elements fight.
Yeah, so Ordeal's real attractive here because you know you're going to wind up with a Foo at some point, and it's 3 bosses killed. Plus, you're starting with a Cecil, opportunity to turn him into a Paladin. Absolutely want to get up here. Of course, the flip side is if you're doing 3 bosses, the odds of one of them being something you don't want to face is higher. But we'll see what comes up. Elements is a pretty decent start here, especially with these really nice attack items they start with.
And that also means that the Rubicon sprite in the inn is actually Rubicon. So a nice spot to see him, as he can be very, very nasty.
Yeah, Rubicon is... He's a weird boss in that he's tough in some spots, but he's also cheesable in a lot of different ways. But that's a really nice spot for him because that spot's magic attack power is very, very, very low, which means the Fire 2 counters won't do very much to you, which is nice.
And another fiend up here on the mountain. And this one, his magic attack is pretty low here, which is kind of what you want to see. And his punches won't do too much damage.
Yeah, taking advantage of those Zeus rages that showed up in the starter kit here. And yeah, Kenyatsu's wave damage is actually based on his current HP.
I had a brain fart there, I knew that.
Yeah, no worries. All right, got him in the shell. Should be pretty free to go from here. Antidel up on Mount Ordeals as well. Looks like Tybalt is also on his way up. And Count Zero, I would have to assume, is going to be on their way up there shortly as well. And they are the one who have a crystal sword, so that Cecil will be much stronger than everybody else's once they get through it.
Yeah, Crystal Sword Cecil can pretty much almost solo a seed.
Yeah, Crystal Sword is a whole bunch of additional strength and a whole bunch of attack power. A Cecil, even with no levels, is going to do an amazing amount of damage.
Now that that turtle is in the deep ravine, we get to see what our final boss here on the mountain is and what our key item is.
So Baron Inn's really the only thing we've got left until we start taking a look at trap chests, but there is a hook which potentially gets you underground, which is a really interesting thing to find here.
Yes, that brings up the question, do you start searching for the magma key in your trap chests, or do you just rush down to the hook and try and get underground?
Absolutely. Or do you kind of take a middle of the road where you check the 2 trap chests and see what boss you're facing at hook, make a decision based on who you scout out there? You got lots of different ways that you can try and play it for sure.
Now that's not a place you want to see King Queen Eblin. Not
No.
with these flags.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Another free boss that's early on in the game here. Knato and buying it off the table early is nice. Basically, everything else we've run into is not stuff you want to run into early. So, if we have to go deep in the seed, could be interesting.
And on Count Zero's side, he is through that Magus fight and now has his Rosa as well.
Yeah, good for him. Should put him back on track here. Those moments when they happen, they always feel really terrible, and you feel like you've just thrown a whole bunch of time away, but actually not all that far behind. The Ordeals bosses are not particularly difficult. He should find his way over there likely after he does Fabul here, and won't be that far behind at all. So Twisted Fox checking some item shops here makes sense. You're going to be looking at trap chests here one way or the other, most likely either in Eblin Castle or on the Hook route. You really would like to have hourglasses, your reservoir of life potions or cure 2s ready available to you when you do that. So poking around here, finding star veils and life potions, which is great, really helps.
And in this flag set, you also want to make sure you have a lot of life potions, as the life glitch is also in it.
Absolutely. Great for grinding. Why don't you explain what the life glitch is?
Okay, so in Final Fantasy 2, 4, whichever you want to call it, enemies have 0 vitality. And vitality is a stat that sets your life. So if you use a life potion on an enemy that has just died, it resurrects them with 0 health and immediately kills them, giving you double the experience for that enemy. And this also works on groups that are 2 or larger.
Perfect, yeah. So it's great for trap chests and great for bosses that things like the Baron guards or the Kaipo guards that don't have the boss bit set, so you can gain extra experience off of them as well. It's a great heads up thing when you're going around and taking out those kinds of bosses and trap chests, just to reduce the amount of time you need to spend leveling later. And it looks like we've got more elements in the Baron Inn. We got Valvalis behind Rubicante.
So at this point, the only fiend we haven't seen is Mylon and Mylon and Friend.
Yeah, that's true. I'm sure people who play those element seeds would have loved to have had this one.
And I believe it was one of the Mylon variants that, no, it was Blue Robe. It was a Blue Robe that gave us our first item, so yeah, it would have been great for that element seed the other week.
Absolutely, yep. There's our Sand Ruby, so there's our Foo. Waiting in the Baron Inn.
Yeah, this seed just pretty much got free when it came to bosses.
Yeah, the Foo, we'll have to see, I guess, technically what spells he's got available to him right now, but sooner or later he's going to wind up with all the good stuff, and certainly his utility, if nothing else, is going to make a huge help going through the hook bosses if they turn out to be difficult. So it looks like Tybalt is taking a peek in Eblin, buying himself a dwarf axe there. Other than steel shenanigans, the only way to back row glitch Kmain. And looks like he's going to continue on and potentially scout out what he's looking at in the hook route here.
Looks like he's also searching for those stalemen to potentially get that key item.
Being very deliberate with the chests that he's checking, only checking a handful of them that are immediately on his way.
And it looks like we've got one of the twins down here.
Yeah, so we got Porum, our white mage. Would prefer the Palom, especially with that warp glitch. Ashura being the boss is a bit of a mixed bag. If you can get anti-mage weaponry, she should go down fairly quickly. I haven't particularly noticed much of it on any of our runners, but there should be something available somewhere. As long as that's the case, it's not bad. If we have no rune axes, no mute arrows, nothing like that, could be a tough fight.
Well, we did pick up some of those star veils, so worst comes to worst, you can always just get a double star veil, but that does take a long time, and she can hit pretty hard in that spot.
Yeah, that, as you mentioned, that's the issue there. Certainly doable, but it's definitely time consuming and potentially dangerous. So Twisted Fox has decided to head into Eblin Castle and is going to start hunting out trap chests here. Gungnir Spear for Kane, a decent find. And Tybalt is taking on those Stalemen, as you mentioned. They're doing the annoying thing that they do in putting your party members to sleep.
It did look like he was able to get the life glitch off on the first one, though, so at least he'll get a little bit of good experience from this, if his party quits sleeping.
Yeah. Interesting find for Count Zero there, pulling an ogre axe out of the back of Troya there. you're gonna have to take out well, at least most likely gonna have to take out that Staleman chest and a couple of Mad Ogre chests. So it's a very nice weapon to be able to get through those physically tough enemies when you don't have a heavy magic party yet.
Yeah, with that Mad Ogre, or with that Ogre Axe, the Mad Ogres just melt like butter.
Yeah, exactly. It's really nice. Actually know a handful of runners who specifically, if they come across one of those, decide to grind on those chests in Eblan Castle because of its power there. So it looks like Tybalt actually also came across a crystal sword somewhere. And so has a completely crystal decked out Cecil and is going to try and use that to get through the early part of the game here.
And we found the best weapon, the Drain Spear.
Yeah. Best in quotations, but I mean, you can solo Zeromus with it, kind of. Yeah.
Okay, maybe not the best weapon, but it is chat's favorite weapon.
Yeah, I mean, fair. Exodent's favorite weapon too, wherever he is. So with the power of that nice Mimeo there for Twisted Flax 8+, Tybalt is going to take that that crystal sword Cecil right through the hook seat here. You're right, Scala. Sorry, my bad. Swimmy.
To answer chat, I believe that was actually the second Gungnir spear we found in Eblan Castle.
Yeah, it seems to be a fairly common find in those tier 6, I think, chests. That level of equipment, Gungnir seems to come up fairly often when you're in that group of stuff. So not surprising that we've come across a couple of them.
So far, not much of value in Eblan Castle. I mean, there was a white shirt, which is very, very nice for your white mages, but other than that, no key items, no special way underground.
Yeah, definitely looking like we're headed towards needing to take this hook route that Tybalt is currently on. Do still have, of course, the couple of potential checks in Tower of Zot. You got the Flame Dog chest, and you can scout out the Vanilla Mega Sisters spot boss, but definitely is looking like we need to be taking this hook route, which gives, a small lead early to Tybalt with deciding to forego Eblan and head straight down here.
Well, we found the crystals, so if we want to go look at a pretty rock.
Yeah, absolutely. About all it's good for in this particular set of flags. That being said, if you haven't gone to Zeromus on a giant seed, you should. Just once.
Absolutely. It's always fun. And be sure to check out that nice little staircase behind him as well.
So yeah, the one thing for Tybalt with taking this early hook route is that he has not gone to the Baron in yet. One would think that would wind up being a relatively high priority check even once he gets through here. You don't really want to dive into something like Self Cave, let's say, while you still have that on the table. And he doesn't have a Black Mage yet, which is going to make doing the Dwarf Castle check a little bit less value. So I would have to imagine he's back up there soon. We'll hope for his sake that that's the case.
Yes, let's hope he hasn't forgotten, because that is 100% required, it looks like. Since it is giant percent, there is no character at the end of the giant, so there are no duplicates.
Party setup here is really nice as well. With the Fu, we've got 3 whitish mages and 2 really nice physical attackers with decent weapons, assuming you found that crystal sword for Cecil, and then we have at least Gungnir spears for Kmain. That should be more than enough to get through most of the bosses that could show up, as long as you have enough levels. And of course, with a Fu, you can always look at doing D-machine grinding. So your party-wise, we're really, really nicely set up here. Just need to find that darkness crystal, really. And CPU.
And it looks like there is a little bit of mage killing gear in the Ublin Cave with that mute knife that Antidale went back for.
Yeah, that's really nice. You can give that to one of the boys, and that will dice Ashura here very nicely. That's a huge find.
And it looks like our first boss guarding the underground via this route is Dark Elf, which does not stand up well to a crystal.
No, it really doesn't. Now heading into the Ashura fight, not going back for the safety save, must feel fairly confident here. As you said, we've got Star Veils, we can do that. I'm assuming Tybalt has the mute knife. I think he looted most of that cave out, so should be okay. He has a set of mute arrows there as well, which is nice.
And back over to Count Zero, he does have his hook and is exiting Mount Ordeals.
And yeah, unfortunately, berserking Rosa with the charm arrows on there rather than the mute arrows, which is unfortunately is going to really hurt her damage here. Ashura also is going to counterattack every time that she is targeted with an attack or an ability. And yeah, she is hitting really hard on this party right now. The Moon Veil does make this fight free if you want to fall back and do that. That's certainly an option. Of course, you never really feel good using a Moon Veil. You always have that runner's mentality about, I want to keep it and use it for something that's tougher than what I'm doing, but certainly this would be a decent place to use it.
That's certainly a trap I fall into when I run, where you get a very nice item and you want to save it and end up never using it.
Yeah, absolutely. Every game I run, every rando I run, I don't really want to use the Mega Elixir now. I can get better value for it later. And then you finish the game with 20 of them in your inventory. But it does look like Tybalt actually kept that crystal armor on Cecil. So him in the back row here, he's actually taking virtually no damage. So as long as he can keep the reflex up off Ashura so that she can't heal herself, he actually should have a relatively easy time here.
And it looks like both Twisted Flax and Antidale are right on Tybalt's heels, heading, Twisted Flax is actually heading into the fight with the Dark Elf.
So we might be able to see, depending on, we know at least Antidale and Twisted Flax have those mute knives, be able to see how big a difference those potentially can make on this Ashura fight in terms of speed once they get into that fight here, as Antidale's just about to head right into it and Twisted will be very shortly behind.
Does look like we have lost our crystal sword damage on Twisted Flax's side.
Yeah, the Pkey Pally going down there. So this is going to make this quite a bit tougher. This spot doesn't have a ton of HP, but it's not a pushover either. So this could be a little bit dicey with these Dark Breaths. Count Zero, meanwhile, is heading into the Baron Inn and will be able to pick up his Fusoya after getting through Rubicante and Valvalis here. Not difficult fights in the spots that they're in, should be fairly quick.
It looks like Twisted had to take a reset there with his Dark Elf fight.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there with the Cecil going down. If he's capable of back row glitching him, which I assume he's got a set of bow and arrows, keeping Cecil in the back row there would be really nice for this fight. I've mentioned it a couple of times. I suppose we should say exactly what the back row glitch is, Alicel, if you want to do that.
Of course, I'd be happy to. So, one small oversight that the developers made in this game was when a character is in the back row, they will do half damage unless they have a ranged weapon. But once that, and there is a flag that turns on and off that enables you to get full damage from the back row. But once you've turned the flag on, it never turns itself off. So you can equip, say, a bow and arrow or a dwarf axe, and then you basically can be in the back row and do full damage, but still take half damage from enemies.
Absolutely. Tybalt getting through Ashura there. Fantastic. Antidale should get through the fight much quicker with the mute weaponry that we know that he has, assuming he's using it. And his Cecil looks like was a little higher level there and is doing a little more damage as well.
And it does look like Antidale's Fu has nuke, but did just unfortunately nuke his mop.
But yeah, you can see how quick that fight was from Antidale, just ripping through Ashura there, and is shortly behind Tybalt, but with a Fusoya in tow. So Tybalt first underground, immediately going to Tamra. We'll see if we get to find out what temporary job Dwarf is up to today.
A radio and TV newscaster.
He's famous, I would assume. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of dwarves, so I would assume everybody would know who he is.
And as Frith points out in chat, our seed is now validated.
Validation dwarf, fantastic. Alright, Tybalt selling off everything they've picked up in all of their T-Wildish looting here for an absolute ton of money. Should be able to buy pretty much anything that he wants from here on out.
And it looks like Antidale had thoughts of going into Feymarch, but then realized his food does not yet know float.
I'm going to assume that his food does know warp, which is why he's doing this. So this is normally a fairly slow check that runners don't like doing, but with the warp glitch on, this turns into 2 key items, so much more valuable. And so yeah, we can take a look at what we've got here.
But it looks like we did find the darkness crystal down in Feymarch.
All right, interesting. So this could be a fast one here because we've got Foo. Just need to find that CPU, but I imagine we're going to see our runners into the giant fairly shortly. And those who are comfortable with the D machine grind will get that grind on to get their levels, and then we'll start flying through the game trying to find that CPU.
And it looks like Tybalt is going to check the 2 bosses in Feymarch. Now, if this is CPU, he has half the puzzle, but does still not have his foo yet.
So we see a Lunar boss and Yang down there. The Yang would actually be a fairly decent-ish fight for some free levels. You as long as Paladin Cecil takes a swing at him after his second kick, he just instantly dies. So if you guys get a couple of blinks off, that wouldn't be too terrible, but it's hardly necessary. So I totally understand just deciding to just nope out of it as well.
Now, with the Dwarf Castle fight, we have seen 2 of our Lunar Sparkles out of the way, and those bosses could potentially be holding a key item that takes us to CPU. So
yeah.
All we have left is Ogopogo, Plague, and Wyvern.
Absolutely. And the other thing too about finding the darkness crystal before you find CPU is that it opens up all of those boss spots on the moon for CPU to potentially be at for you as well. So that's a lot of different options, but you have to do the giant. So I would imagine that the runners will be looking at doing giant as soon as they get that darkness crystal. And so for the most part, although Zero is actually deciding to go through Evelyn Castle here, Tybalt is going to actually fight the warrior trap chest in Feymarch.
Oh no, and it looks like Antidale forgot to do the warp glitch. So he will have to go through the sealed cave to get that key item.
Yeah, that's tough. May not have noticed it. Possibly didn't notice it in the flags. But yeah, no, that is a bit of an oopsie. Hopefully, for Antidale's sake, it doesn't wind up mattering. But that certainly is going to be a feels bad until you find out exactly how that was supposed to work out for you.
Now, if CPU is hiding in Sealed Cave, that could be a big boon for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick reset there for Antidale. Going to take on the warrior chest, actually, with some HP. Runners do have a handful of hourglasses, so that will make the fight relatively free. Looks like he's decided better of it. He's going to leave it for later.
Well, and it looks like the warrior's chest just gave a, was that a power shirt?
Power shirt's certainly not bad, and definitely not really what you're looking for. So Antidale gets his darkness crystal, so he knows that he's down to finding CPU, so probably going to put off the trap chests in favor of boss locations, and just hope that you don't need another key item in order to be able to get at CPU wherever it is.
Yep, he will possibly go to the moon and just kind of look at all the bosses and see if he can't find that CPU as quickly as possible, and then make a beeline for the giant.
I kind of want vanilla CPU. I think it would be great to start the seed vanilla the way we started it and end it vanilla. I think that would be fantastic. But
Very true, very true. And to answer Ralthian, we have not seen D-Mist yet.
yeah, absolutely, Dathis. There's no guarantee that CPU is available with our current loadout. Absolutely true. As I said, it is I know you may not necessarily need it, but with that Cecil, kind of surprised people haven't decided to just poke out that Yang while you're there, but odds are it's not going to matter, but could.
And with Twisted Flax, he is finished with Ashura and is through to the underground, while Count Zero is just now entering Tower of Babel to get to the underground.
Twisted taking a quick stop at the pot of healing there, and is now going to be heading to the Dwarf Castle. We'll see if Twisted remembers that the warp glitch is on, and if we'll be able to take a look at the item and potentially... sorry, we can't see the boss, but we can take a look at least at the item that would be theoretically behind the cookie.
And Antidale is making a beeline for the giant, and as Dia points out, if it is go mode, he is finished with this race.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, it gets you access to potentially just if you decide you just want to get a D machine grind on, you can just get that now, and that'll let you blow through the rest of the seed as well.
And we have the last arm chest.
Not quite able to get through last arm. Hopefully that was a recent save.
Oh.
Recent-ish. Gonna have to go through the big whale cutscene again, but it could be worse. And that's true. Tybalt actually is the runner who doesn't have Foo yet, but he did grab a Rydia from here. Rydia learns Warp fairly early. She might get enough XP off this fight. $20 levels should be enough.
Yeah, 20 will probably do it for him. Yep, there's Warp.
So hopefully he remembers that that glitch is on in this flag set for tonight. And it looks like Twisted Flax actually did check it and came up, or that was Baron Keys. That was actually the Dwarf Castle reward, right? Never mind. And Tybalt does remember, so we will get to take a look at this.
So, to answer a question in chat, what is the Warp glitch? Would you like to explain that?
Sure. So the crystal room here in the dark world, there's actually only one of them basically mapped out. So when you use the warp spell after going through the dwarf castle event, the warp spell will take you back into that room, but it takes you back into the sealed cave version of that room, so you can actually get the item back there. If you do that in the vanilla game, you can actually get the darkness crystal and completely skip needing to go through sealed cave. In the randomizer, obviously, you can check whatever that item is that happens to get randomized back there. If the dwarf castle warp glitch is enabled, it is a flag that you can turn on and off.
And that's a very, very useful thing that I wish I had have known when I played this game in vanilla, because the sealed cave was my least favorite area.
I liked it because it gave you a lot of levels, because the trapdoors are good experience, but I definitely remember also sighing as I was doing it, so I hear you there.
And with Twisted Flax, it looks like he is clearing out the trap chests in the Sylph Cave, and has found the rat tail already and is now fighting the frog.
Looks like he wasn't quite able to get an hourglass or a mute bell or anything off, so gonna have to deal with these toad casts, which is pretty annoying, honestly. And thankfully for him, Tybalt is checking out the Baron Inn location, so he will grab his Fusoya from the Sand Ruby that comes here.
And Antidale is trying to clear out his inventory for some space, as one thing about T. Wildish is you pick up a lot of stuff.
Yep, inventory boss is certainly a thing in FF4 for sure.
But it looks like he did pick up an Avenger, which can just tear through some boss.
Yeah, Crystal Avenger Cecil can certainly do a lot of work. It looks like we turned in. Did we turn encounters off? No, obviously not. Okay.
We have the Baron Guards in the first spot in the Giant. This is one of those bosses that you can use some of those J items like an hourglass to completely just fly through.
Yeah, this is a perfect boss here. You can see Antidale using stone is just going to insta-kill them. So all of that HP that you normally have to get through here, just completely wipe it right off the table. Fantastic boss to show up in that spot. Twisted Flax continuing to power through Sylph Cave, taking on the 6 ghost chests here. These guys having to sit through the Fire 2 animations, it takes forever. Mute Bells, excellent counter to them if you don't have a ton of hourglasses available to you. Mute Bells are cheap, and at the very least you don't have to sit through the Fire 2 animation as long as you can get it off before the cast.
And we have found our Wyvern for the night, and the flag Whichburn is on, so tonight his spell of choice is Cold Mist.
Great choice from the player's point of view for that Whichburn spell as well. So this shouldn't be too bad here.
Yeah, even with Whichburn, you can still get some very, very nasty spells from Wyvern.
CPU's magic damage isn't particularly fantastic here either, so that nuke was just barely enough to take out Kmain. So this should go pretty smoothly for Antidale.
And he's through with that nuke from Fusoya.
Alright, so that is the giant down for Antidale. Going to be on the hunt for CPU. So we'll see where he decides to go. I would imagine it would be the moon based on the density of bosses that he has left unchecked, but we'll see what he decides.
And Twisted is still in Sylph Cave, just kind of barreling through all of these ghosts. There are several trap chests in this zone, so you don't want to miss it if it's your missing key.
Yeah, unfortunate. It could, depending on how this works out. Obviously, Twisted has not gone into Feymarch and picked up his Darkness Crystal. But if we wind up with a tower key or a Luca key or something from here that leads to that CPU, should have a much easier time getting to the finish line than anyone who actually did the giant first, such as Antidale here in this case.
And we have an edge on the lunar altar. And I know we've got some good weaponry for him.
Yeah. Even Edge certainly would have been even better if we had run across him earlier on in the seed. But even later on in the game like this, his ability to just throw all of those other weapons that you've been holding on to is really nice. You're basically just in boss killing mode here, so just being able to huck anything good that you find right at bosses' faces is helpful.
Now, getting rid of Kmain, that's an interesting choice, but we have seen Valvalis, so there's no worry.
Yeah, Kmain's a good physical fighter, don't get me wrong, but he's got an accuracy problem with a lot of his good weapons, which sort of limits his overall damage potential. Edge is probably even more gear dependent, but the fact that he has Dart available to him and the fact that we have at least one good Ninja Sword for him already, I totally understand the decision.
And Antidale doing one of my strats and getting lost, going down to the lunar subterranean.
I mean, it's unfortunate, I guess, that he doesn't need to check the trap. Well, he might need to check the trap chest up here, but he's certainly not going to gamble on it.
And we see a very quick DKC and a very quicker reset.
That hard to hit the reset button faster than that. Yep, that was an instantaneous nope there. And so yeah, Anti basically just on the boss search right now. If it's not CPU, I don't want it.
And it looks like he had that Avenger equipped, so that would have also made for a very, very nasty DKC.
Yeah, Bahamut's a pretty free fight here. Just going to use some walls and pick up some EXP on whoever has a wall on them.
Well, and this spot has one of the best EXP gains of any spot other than the CPU spot up in the Giant. When you have 10 key items, I believe it is 20,000 or 200,000. Let's add another zero to that.
Yeah, 200,000. Yeah, it's a ton. If you get a boss that you get to life glitch cheese here, it's fantastic. Count Zero also finding that rat tail here in Sylph Cave. Probably will be able to see what that is here between either him or Twisted Flax shortly.
And Tybalt has joined Antidale here on the moon. May do a quick boss check, or he may do trap chests, as your key item can still be hidden behind one of those chests.
Yeah, interesting to come up before going through the Giant, since you know you have to do that, but certainly could wind up paying out. We already know that tower key that Antidale picked up here is up here, so certainly could wind up being a decent routing option.
That that is not the spot that you want to see Evil Wall.
No, it's not. That spot hits hard. It has a pretty decent amount of speed. And those are the two boxes you don't want checked when you fight Evil Wall. So I am totally with Etoggle here. I'm not going back to that unless I have to.
Yeah, I think at that point I better be checking all the trap chests first.
Yeah. Certainly, I'd be going back down to Earth and checking that tower key first, at the very least.
Ooh, that's also who you don't want to see up on the moon.
Yeah, and this is what we were worried about when we saw all those free bosses early on in the sea, that you would wind up with a whole bunch of stuff you don't want up here. That certainly turns out to be the case. So all the runners are sure gonna hope that none of them have a Luca key or a twin harp or an earth crystal on them that they need. It looks like Twisted came across a vanilla pan on the Sheila 1 check. We'll probably turn right around and check that. I'm going to do the rat tail first. I think that makes sense.
And it looks like per chat, the rat tail gave a Zeus gauntlet. While a nice piece of equipment, it is not required.
Until taking a look at the pale dim spot here and getting Millen and buddies. Again, not CPU, so resetting right out.
Now, at this point, if you're Antdale and you don't find your required boss in Cave Bahamut, where do you go next?
If it's me, I'm dropping a save on the moon, going back down to Earth and checking the 2 tower bosses. And then if it's turns out that it's not there, probably would pull the trap chest on the way down the tower, and then I would have the decision on my hands from there.
And just an octomammoth in the Cave Bahamut.
Until on his way back down, changing ships. So it looks like likely is making the tower play.
And it looks like he is skipping all of the chests until he gets to the top. We'll see if he doesn't find his CPU, if he opens them on the way.
Yeah, I would imagine that that's the plan, is that you check them on the way down if you don't find your boss up here. Oof. Man, what a spot for the gauntlet. Oh boy.
Yeah, this is a pretty rude spot for the gauntlet.
Yeah, because this spot has no HP, it has no offense, it has absolutely nothing. The gauntlet is just here to just make you hold your A button down for a few minutes.
And he decides to nope out of that.
Okay, Auntie must have reset Dwarf Castle earlier. Yeah, so he's gonna check this now. I don't believe he checked the top of the tower earlier, so kind of surprised that he didn't go up there and do that while he was parked right outside the tower, but it's gonna be it's two bosses here as opposed to one at the top, so in terms of numbers it definitely makes sense.
And it looks like on Twisted Flax's screen we got an Earth Crystal in Lower Babel, so if that's required he may regret not checking those checks.
That's a good point. Yeah, he probably scoped the boss out after going through the hook. That's true. We are getting some finishers here now. So first place was Dr. Cossack with a finish time of 1:14.21. And we've got Flurry finishing in second with a time of 1:17.16.
Yes, GG to those runners. And Count Zero also has his Earth Crystal.
Yeah, so Earth Crystal opens up two bosses. We know about the Baron key that we got at Alpha, the Dwarf Castle check here. We do that. It's actually holding 3, although we know one of them is Water Hag, so there's 2 left unscouted. So those are a couple more options that the runners have available to them. It looks like Tybalt is choosing to take that one right now. And yeah, that Crystal Sword in Watery Pass was a very nice early find. Several of our on-stream runners decided to make that dip into there and came away with that very nice prize.
And for those of us who are joining, or for those who are joining us for the first time seeing one of these races, we do have several other off-screen racers who are racing all at the same time. Races are open to everyone who wants to join. We have a great community. We invite you to join our Discord, where you can find out all about the randomizer, different events going on, and our twice-a-week races.
Yeah, excellent community, very welcoming, very willing to teach. So if you're interested at all, highly recommend it.
And this randomizer is not just for those who are, say, the pros at this game. You can take the flags and make them as hard or as easy as you'd possibly want. If you want everybody to get the best gear possible, you can put it on so that everybody gets the best gear possible. And if you want to make it so hard that nobody can beat it, you can also do that.
And here we go. Tybalt has found CPU at the Baron King spot. And so he will very shortly be through this seed. And there it is, all objectives complete. So GG to Tybalt, finishing in 3rd place with a time of 1:20:26.
Yes, GG's to Tybalt. And we have Antidale. Looks like he's coming up to CPU as well.
Yeah, Twisted Flax finding a D mist here, so another bit of a potential chain dive down here. And there's our objectives complete for Antidale, finishing in 4th with a time of 1:21:10.
And we're going to see if we can't get these runners in for an interview.
And there's Tybalt, GG.
GG. I almost thought about checking moon bosses there, but that would have been a bad choice. Oh, I thought myself I was gonna do giant after checking the moon character, and my wife kept me to it. So don't you do giant, then go from there.
Yep, your route through the seed was hard to do it better. We were a little bit worried for you for going so long without that foo. What was your thought on Baron in? Were you had it in the back of your mind to always go back, or what were you thinking?
Yeah, I like I'll go Baron after I get the Baron key, and then once I saw I got the Sand Ruby, I'm like, oh, I feel so far behind not having that early foo. I felt like I was way behind everybody else. Because normally I check Baron before I go underground.
Well, you were our first runner to make it underground, and getting through those balls.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to beat Azura down there in the underground. I didn't know if I had the damage output. So I did the Star Veil back up on her twice just to make sure.
Yeah, the fight was definitely a bit of a slog. Did you grab the mute knife that was in Eblin, or did you not wind up seeing that?
I did not get the mute knife.
Okay.
I actually had the wrong arrows on Rose. I had, I didn't have charm arrows on her, which would have been better. But fastest time I've ever had, so I'm really proud of myself in this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You completely flew through. Once you got through Ashura, you flew through the rest of it and basically beelined everywhere you needed to go. It was a really fantastic run through the second half of the seed.
Yeah, once I got to just boss checks, I'm thinking in my head, where can I go for just boss checks? Quick as possible. Wow. Talk about a nice salty run back, because I ran this on Monday and I didn't do too well.
Mondays was a little rough, too, and a little trolly.
Yeah, I ended up forfeiting on Mondays after about 3.5 hours.
Well, you showed that seed who's boss, and you did it tonight.
Yes, I did.
Absolutely. GG's again, Tybalt. Thanks for joining us. Great result. Good.
Thank
GG.
you. Thanks for commentating and restreaming. You guys have a good rest of your night.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
it was our pleasure.
you too.
Thank you. And now we are joined by Antidale. GG, sir. That 4th place finish. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations. Awesome job.
Thank you.
So 2nd place finish on the restream, but you definitely were the runner who got to see the most of the seed. We'll definitely say that. So how did you feel about going through that seed?
Well, the couple of mistakes of just kind of forgetting to save at a very inopportune places So then I was just kind of gambling to see if I could find CPU on the moon, and just checked as much as I could.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So did you consider that a gamble on your part to check the moon, or in normal circumstances would you be more apt to check Dwarf Castle, the Baron Key, that kind of stuff first?
Well, I would, but since I had not saved after getting the Baron Key and figured other people would probably check that soon and didn't want to redo it if I didn't have to, I figured I'd just go and look everywhere else that I could, so that I could just consider that checked, because at least I saw the 2 Dwarf Castle bosses. But, you know, Rando's gonna Rando, and it did not work out for me.
I mean, all that being said, you still put a pretty nice time on the board, everything considering. Boss fight wise, you must have felt pretty good, because generally speaking, you melted everything in your way on your way through this thing.
Yeah, well, having that little bit of trouble with no actual Kmain weapons early, so I had to go dig a little bit more and found that crystal sword really made the rest of the seed pretty free.
Well, and what about those bosses on the moon?
They were nice to look at and then reset out of.
Yeah, we were wondering about that earlier. Like, man, there's a lot of free bosses coming off the table early in this seed. It would be pretty hilarious if we have to do stuff on the moon. And thankfully, no, I guess, for the most part anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I took the Bahamut because there's the 2 key items there, so just in case it's locked behind something there, would have been pretty nice.
But then that Evil Wall, DKC, and Golbez.
Yeah, it was nice to wave goodbye to them as I reset and started again.
Yeah, I certainly don't blame you. So thanks for joining us, Antidale. GG on the finish. Great race. Little unfortunate, obviously, with the resets, but otherwise, I don't think you can hang your head. I think you played this really well.
Oh no, it was fun. Thanks for the stream and commentary. And it looks like Vivelis wants me to go grab the harp and play some music for y'all. So I'll be going to do that real shortly.
Ah, fantastic. Thank you. You're a man of the people.
Much.
Thanks. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
So don't worry, chat. We will be able to get our music. Antidale is going to take care of that for us.
And it looks like, back to the race, Twisted Flax seems to be on the right path by getting that bearing.
Yeah, hopefully this will push Twisted Flax just to head straight over there and give that a quick look. Count Zero's checking the pan. Doesn't have the Baron Key in his inventory, apparently, so hopefully the Dwarf Castle checks are coming up shortly. Both runners don't have their Darkness Crystals, actually, so still need to take that dip into Feymarch. If I had to guess, they're planning on wanting to be able to take on the bosses down there, and so they're putting that off to make sure they have the levels before they go.
And while we were having our interviews, we did have a few more finishers. We had Poydrak finishing in 5th place with a time of 1:22:57. D. Shmoo in 6th with a time of 1:23. And Computer with a time of 1:24:20.
So, yep, and actually just had Jeebus Zero finish with a time of 1:29:48 in 8th place. So GG's to all the off-stream runners who've finished today. That pink tail off of that Mist Dragon check, potential adamant armor, which is always useful. Count Zero into Feymarch, so going to go check that free item there and should come up with their Darkness Crystal.
Now, hopefully he doesn't get caught up and decides to actually check his dwarf castle before he goes up to the giant.
Yeah, could be a little bit dicey here for Count Zero. It's going to be very easy to take that darkness crystal, go to the giant, and then go to the moon from there and not do dwarf. Twisted Flax, on the other hand, is going through Baron right now, so he is going to run into his CPU here. So darkness crystal will be go mode for him when he heads to Feymarch.
We have Antidale showing the Mylon and friends the power of the crystal sword.
Yes. This we talked about how the moon being bad. This fight obviously is also pretty nice to find up here usually, but should know from the credits that this is either the Twin Harp or leads to it. Flax in that water hag fight. CPU will be up next for him. Count Zero deciding to take out these warriors on his way down.
And I do believe that this will be the, well, no, Flax also has that earth crystal. He may be tempted to go up and see if his darkness crystal is hiding there.
Yeah, definitely possible. I'm hoping he decides to go, and he certainly has the levels to take on the Feymarch chess, even if he felt like he had to. So hopefully he doesn't put it off. But Earth Crystal is closer in terms of flight time, so certainly could decide to head up there instead. And yeah, Odin spot and losing some time checking that is certainly a possibility as well.
And Count Zero is getting his darkness crystal now.
Yep, so there you go. So he's going to come down and take a look at these bosses just to check this shop, just to make sure that CPU isn't down here. And then I assume he will duck out and just head to the giant from here. We shall see.
It looks like Antidale has gotten that twin harp and is headed down to the Dark Elf spot.
There we go. So we will have our harp tune shortly. Count Zero on his way out of Feymarch. We'll see whether or not he decides to head straight to the giant. I imagine he will. And we will see what Twisted decides to do here as well.
I think that is the fourth Leviathan summon I think we've seen this season.
That cabin in front of Baron tells me Twisted is going to check out the Odin spot here. And yeah, stage 1 from Blaster Master. Sunsoft Games always have excellent NES music, and that one really translates very well to the Heart MIDI.
And thank you to Antidale for going and showing us our music for this seed, since the seed didn't require us to do.
And yeah, this is sort of what we were worried about happening with Twisted Flax. He's sort of falling down the rabbit hole, as you say, and going to be checking the Earth Crystal out here as well.
Yes, it looks like both of our restreamed runners are kind of possibly going both down rabbit holes. While this is required, Count Zero does not have his Baron Key yet. He has not done his Dwarf Castle.
Yeah, so
And it looks like we have Bomb here up in the tower. Shouldn't be too hard a fight, but it does have that extra 10,000 hit points to burn through. And we may be having a slight hiccup with my co-commentator Zyrax, so I will take over until he is back. And Count Zero is through the guards fight and just has his CPU spot to and feeling very brave and not saving first. Which, when you see Wyvern as soon as you start the fight, is terrifying. But he is through that fight and heading out of the giant. And Twisted only finding Balnab and Dr. Lugay up here, hopefully now knows his darkness crystal has to be in the Fame. And as Dathis points out, he could get a key item from this. It could potentially be his Luca key. And Count Zero, finding Edge on the altar, decides he has put too much time into his characters and lets Edge go on his merry. And Flax is making a beeline for the Feymarch and should be finding his darkness crystal shortly and will be heading to the
Yeah, that's sort of the nature of routing seeds like this sometimes, and that the order that you do things in quite often can change how you decide to do things. And in this case, finding CPU before the darkness crystal is just a huge boon, because it prevents the situation that Count Zero is right now unfortunately in, where you wind up checking the entire moon for CPU.
That's right, and with so many key items that he doesn't have yet, he may be inclined to start checking those boxes.
Yeah, that will be the real danger, especially since he doesn't actually have that Baron key in his pocket. He'll definitely be incentivized to try and get through stuff up here.
Now, hopefully he hasn't forgotten about Dwarf Castle, as sometimes when you have those orphan checks, especially when you're no longer looking for a boss, they kind of just slip out of your mind.
So there we go. There's that darkness crystal for Twisted Flax, putting him into go mode. Probably doesn't feel great knowing that he left it down here, but as I said, it may very well have wound up working in his favor, since he found the CPU before having to head to the giant.
And immediately heading to get the whale. And I assume that we will be seeing his finish fairly soon.
Yeah, we know there's not really too much to the boss fights up there. And it looks like Count Zero is just in boss checking reset mode, which is definitely going to be best case scenario for him. So hopefully he decides to continue on this.
Exactly, because all of these boss checks are pretty long checks or extremely hard boss.
Yeah, you really don't want to have to go through here. There is a little bit of metagaming involved in this as well. Like, you know, people finished a little over an hour, so odds are that somebody came to the moon and pushed their way through a really tough boss fight is very minimal.
It looks like Count wisely made a safety save here on the surface so he doesn't have to go all the way back up to see that pale dim.
So this should be a pretty quick reset out of here as well. Maybe you fight Millen because you've checked all the other spots and haven't seen CPU, so maybe you fight this one because this one isn't too bad, but I would expect him to reset here too.
Yep, he wants none of that, just looking for bosses.
Twisted Flax is up to the Baron Guards. Quick Hourglass. And I don't know if we ever found coffins anywhere, but certainly should just be able to get through them. Hopefully he decides to use Fatal or Stone or something with food to save himself some time here. Because this is a lot of HP to chew through.
Oh dear, it does look like his food did get minied, so you hope that he doesn't get hit.
keeps hovering over that Fatal. Like, oh, come on, just use it. But nope.
And his foo is down. And as Chad is pointing out, Cecil will cover a character who is in low HP status unless he is unless he is parrying or he is berserk. But it can be very, very helpful when you have your entire party at low HP levels and your Cecil is covering them all with crystal armor and all of the best things and only getting hit for one.
Absolutely, it's a very, very viable strat when you're taking on tough bosses, and particularly if you can go into the fight while lowering your character's HP. So if you're doing a really tough fight at Cave Magnus or at one of the Fame Arch bosses in particular, where you can just damage yourself on the nearby damage tiles, it's a very, very powerful tool at your disposal.
And Count Zero is on the right track to get his Baron key and find his CPU.
So he has been resetting bosses, so hopefully he decides to play this one through. He should, because he also has Warp.
And it looks like Twisted Flax has recovered from his foo going down, and now is just trying to take down all that HP with his berserked characters and jumping Yang, or I'm sorry, jumping.
Yeah, you can see how much HP this spot has if you have to actually legitimately try and DPS through it. It is a lot.
Right. In the normal game, you usually fight the 4 fiends here, and their combined health actually is reset halfway through the fight as the game maxes out HP at about 65,000 and change. And Count Zero giving us a minor heart attack, remembering his warp glitch and forgetting to pick up his item, but does remember and goes back for it.
Does decide to head to Baron before checking out the Luca key that he also has in his inventory, which is great.
And Twisted Flax gets one of the guards down, which will make the fight significantly easier. And he is through that fight, and will soon be taking on the CPU spot.
Shouldn't really have any problems with Wyvern. I don't blame him for taking the safety save here, getting that mini cured off. But his characters actually have enough HP that they can probably take a nuke in this spot, so he should be more than fine.
Now, I remember one weekly race where Wyvern was in this spot and knew Needle and was doing 3,000 or so to every character.
That's rough. My favorite memory with this is that months and months ago, there was a seed of the week where J items were off on a giant seed. And the Baron guards were actually here at CPU, and they laid waste to a lot of people.
That sounds absolutely terrible.
Yes, I was one of the lucky people who had mute arrows for that fight, but there were a lot of people who didn't have any good way to deal with them, and they're so fast and they hit so hard, they were absolutely terrifying.
And it looks like it's going to be a nail biter finish here as both runners are at their final objective.
And there it is. Looks like Twisted is going to get there first, but just barely. Oh man, maybe not because of this animation. Oh. Unfortunate for Twisted, but
we have a finisher on our third place finisher on Restream, Count Zero. He comes in 10th place with a time of 1:57.05.
Twisted Flax right behind him, 1:57.34. That was such a crazy finish that the CPU explosion animation, the difference between a place there, that's absolutely crazy.
And we are going to try and get these runners in for interviews. But that is all for our restreamed runners.
And we have Twisted Flax in here. GG's on the finish, Twisted.
Thank you very much.
That was quite a nail biter there at the end.
I am so surprised. I saw that Count Zero finished about 30 seconds, 45 seconds ahead of me, and it must have been an exciting race.
It was very close at the end. You actually killed Wyvern before he finished CPU, but the explosion animation was long enough to let him finish before you. At least that's what we saw on the restream.
Ah, jeez. That'll do it.
But what did you think of that seed?
Oh, it certainly took you places. I haven't done a seed like this in quite some time with all the trap chests, so it was kind of a challenge trying to remember where they all were.
There are a lot of them. And if you're not used to it, yeah, it's easy to miscount or forget for sure. Everyone had pretty different routes going through this. Did you have any idea how you wanted to tackle it going into it, or?
Well, I saw we got the package first thing, so I knew I could get a pretty decent party together, and then it was just a matter of trying to find the way to the underworld. And once I got the hook, that opened up a whole bunch more places to search, and it just seemed like a case of trying to remember how many checks I had in every location, and which seemed to be the most convenient and most logical at the time.
Sure. I guess the one thing we have to ask you left that darkness crystal in Feymarch for a long time. Was that sort of intentional, or what were you thinking? Were you trying to get strong enough to handle the Feymarch bosses?
That's always in the back of my mind with Feymarch, is just because those boss spots down there can be so tough. So I figured, if I go down there too early, I might have to have the indignity of coming back and grinding up. So I figured I would just do some trap chest searching first, and then eventually be strong enough to be able to clear Feymarch in one go. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for me.
I hear you. I think the same way in a lot of seeds, and I've certainly been burnt more than once doing it myself. So I totally understand the logic there for sure.
Yes.
Well, and that did save you the chance of having to go to the moon to search for your final boss. You knew where your go mode item was.
Oh, yes. That's the one good thing about finding the Dark Crystal last, is that you don't have to worry about the moon.
But again, you played wonderfully, and it was a pleasure to watch.
Thank you very much. Thanks for doing this as always.
Absolutely, it was a pleasure. GG's once again on the finish.
Thank you very much.
So we'll see if we can grab Count Zero here real quick. And while we're waiting for Count Zero, we can throw out a few shoutouts. Thanks very much to Acre for handling the tracking tonight, Valvela Skunk for handling the restream for our friends at Randomania. And the next community race will be coming up Monday at 8 o'clock Eastern. And just remember, we do have a tournament coming up, the Fabul Gauntlet Tournament, with the random objectives. One-on-one Swiss to start off will be starting shortly, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled on RPG Limit Break, Randomania, and the Free Enterprise channel for various races throughout that tournament once we get started.
And if you do want to compete in that tournament and you haven't signed up yet, today is your last day to sign up. Well, today as in the 8th.
Yes.
So if you want to compete, get in on that. And we are joined by Count Zero. GG's to you, Count.
GG's. Thank you so much. And GG's all the racers. And yeah, no, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, very, very exciting race on the restream between you and Twisted Flax there at the end. What we saw here was he was killing Bahamut and the Giant as you were killing CPU. He actually got his Wyvern down first, but the animation after the boss explodes was enough time for you to get your boss down and finish. So it was very entertaining end to the race.
Oh, wow. That's great. Oh, that was... I guess I clutched that one out. Is that you call that a snipe?
Yeah, that's the definition, I would say, for sure.
Outstanding. No, that was a rough seed. I think I understand why people metagame now. When I saw all the different people finishing and like hour 20, hour 30, I think I saw, or mostly hour 30. I'm like, oh, it must not, and because of the volume of people finishing there, it must have been something obvious, because I'm like, I'll be tricky. I'll do things that no one else will do, and I'll get ahead, and I won't get last place this time. So I started to do that. And it was, I thought it was working, and then when I saw, yeah, it was the Sand Ruby. At first I knew it was, Fusoya's in the bed, sleepy mop. Who would put that there? And then I'm like, oh wait, the Sand Ruby? That was easy to get? Ooh, I must be behind. Okay, well, to make up for that, we're gonna do tower, or keyless tower. Okay, that didn't pan out.
Right.
Well, you would have just had to fight the gauntlet in that spot, so...
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I was hoping I wouldn't run into the gauntlet. I'm glad I didn't. And then with the... and the darkness crystal being so obvious, just laying there, just behind, the hook.
Yep.
Ooh, that hurt. Ooh,
yeah, that was going to be my next question. Yeah, so was that because you were trying to do stuff that was sort of not obvious as you put it, or when we spoke, because both you and Twisted left that darkness crystal there for quite a while. Twisted said he was more because he wanted to make sure he had the levels to take on the Feymarch bosses if he had to. Were you thinking along those lines, or was it more I want to do the stuff that I don't think other people are going to do?
Well, I try after this last Monday, I took something to heart, and when you got KQMT, I think, when the key items are distributed amongst the trap chests, that changes things a lot. Things are weighted a lot differently. So Sylph Cave, go there. You know, the tower, that means there's 6 key items there, 5 with the tower, or potentially key items.
Right.
I mean, so like, you gotta go there. And well, what's Land of Monsters or Feymarch got? 2 bosses and a chest out in the open. Like, everyone's gonna do that. So I figure, okay, it's real cheap to just go check the bosses and pick up that while and maybe I'll go thwack or Yang in the head with the pan, you know, not a problem. And then I'm like, oh, that's a darkness crystal. I'm really behind. Let's go do that because I got that crystal sword super early. Did anyone else get that?
A few people did. You definitely had it first, but a few other people on the restream did eventually wind up going through there because there weren't a lot of really good Cecil and King weapons available outside of the Watery Pass at first. So a lot of people did wind up going in there eventually, but you definitely had it first.
Okay. And then I kind of slacked off on, or took my time getting to
It looks like we may have lost Count Zero. He may have disconnected.
There we go. Got him back real quick.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. No, I didn't have to grind. I was happy about that. I was plowing through bosses, Crystal Sword or Cecil, and a Fusoya. Like, what could be easier?
Yeah, unfortunately, like I said, with KQMT, sometimes you just wind up checking all the wrong stuff first, and it's just the way it happens sometimes. It would have been lots of seeds where what you did would have worked. Unfortunately, it just wasn't this one.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize I think I like the KQMT seeds or the trap chest with the key items. Like, I like that. I also like dark matter, which is an unpopular opinion.
It certainly changes the way the randomizer feels for sure. It gives you more options. But Joe, as I said, GG on the finish. Very exciting finish at the end there on the restream. Thanks for racing for us today. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope my stream wasn't too bad. I'll get an upgrade. It'll be better soon enough.
Looked good on our end. And again, GG's. We appreciate you being one of our featured runners.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to the restream team. Y'all do a wonderful job.
Once again, it was our pleasure to have you. And with that, we will bring our race night to a close. And one more last reminder, keep your eyes peeled coming up when the Fabul Gauntlet gets started. February 8th, last day to sign up if you want to sign up. And if you just want to have a good time and watch, get ready. You're going to have a lot more free enterprise action coming at you over the next several weeks.
Oh yeah, throw down the gauntlet.
And I want to thank my co-commentator Zykier, and I want to thank Valvolus and Ikier. And again, we want to thank Randomania for letting us stream on their channel.
Absolutely. Thank you, LSL. And we will see all of you next race. Have a good night.
Have a good night, y'all.